The night he met her, the rain was coming down like it had something to confess. It blurred the streetlights into trembling halos and soaked his jacket until it clung to him like a second skin. He had not been looking for anything except a way to get through another evening without feeling the weight of his own life pressing down on his chest. And yet, in the most unexpected way, that night cracked him open, because sometimes love does not arrive with fireworks or certainty, but with a quiet moment that changes the direction of everything. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that the smallest moments can reshape an entire life, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. He was 34 and felt older than that, the kind of older that came from years of putting one foot in front of the other without asking why. He lived in a modest apartment outside Seattle, close enough to the city to feel its pulse but far enough to avoid its noise. His days were spent managing logistics for a shipping company, a job that required precision but offered little meaning. He did everything right, paid his bills on time, checked on his mother every Sunday, and kept his disappointments neatly folded away where no one could see them. After a relationship ended 2 years earlier, not with betrayal but with exhaustion, he stopped believing that love would surprise him again. He assumed it was something people found when they were younger, before responsibilities hardened their edges. That night he had volunteered to cover a late shift for a coworker, more out of habit than generosity. When he finally stepped out into the rain, the bus stop near the warehouse was nearly empty. The city felt distant, muffled by water and wind. That was when he noticed her standing under the shelter, struggling to hold a cardboard sign steady against the gusts. She was soaked, her hair plastered to her face, her shoes clearly not meant for weather like this. What struck him first was not pity, but the way she stood, straight back despite the storm, as if refusing to let the night see her break. He almost kept walking. He told himself he had done enough good for the day by staying late at work, that he could not fix every broken situation he passed. But something about her presence tugged at him, a quiet insistence that would not let go. He stopped, turned back, and stood a few feet away, unsure what to do next. The rain filled the silence, and the city seemed to hold its breath. She was around his age, maybe younger, with tired eyes that still held a flicker of alertness. Her sign mentioned a shelter being full and asked for help getting a bus ticket. He noticed how carefully the letters were written, as if effort itself were a form of dignity. Without thinking too much, he reached into his wallet and handed her enough cash for a ticket and more. It was not a grand gesture, just something that felt necessary in that moment. She looked up at him, surprised, and nodded in gratitude. There were no dramatic words exchanged, no sudden connection he could name. He simply stood there as she folded the money carefully and tucked it away, as if it mattered deeply to her. The bus arrived soon after, and they boarded separately, taking seats far apart. He told himself that was the end of it, that kindness did not always need a continuation. But as the bus moved through the city, he found his thoughts drifting back to her, wondering where she was headed, what had led her to that bus stop, and why her presence felt heavier than the rain-soaked night itself. When he got off at his stop, he carried that weight home with him, unable to shake the sense that something unfinished had just brushed past his life. Over the next few weeks, he returned to that bus stop more often than usual, sometimes out of routine, sometimes out of a hope he refused to name. He told himself he was just being observant, that noticing people did not mean anything more. On a cold morning just before dawn, he saw her again, sitting on the bench with a paper cup in her hands, staring out at the street like she was measuring her chances against the day. This time, he sat down a few seats away, close enough to acknowledge her presence, but far enough to respect her space. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and reflective. Their connection unfolded slowly, without urgency. He began bringing extra coffee, then extra food, telling himself it was easier than watching someone go without. She accepted these offerings with a mix of gratitude and caution. clearly used to kindness that came with expectations attached. Over time, he learned pieces of her story, not through dramatic confession, but through the accumulation of small truths. She had grown up in a small town in Oregon, moved to Seattle chasing a job that vanished when the company downsized, and then lost her apartment after a string of setbacks that piled too quickly to outrun. She spoke of it not with bitterness, but with a matter-of-fact acceptance that life could tilt without warning. What surprised him most was how much being around her unsettled his carefully ordered world. He started questioning the routines he had clung to for years, the safe distance he kept from anything that might hurt him again. He noticed how easily she laughed at simple things, how she found beauty in the way morning light slipped between buildings, how she never pretended her situation was anything other than hard, yet refused to let it define her entirely. Without realizing it, he began to rearrange his days to include those moments at the bus stop, as if they were becoming an essential part of his life. The challenge came not from her, but from within himself. He wrestled with the fear that he was crossing an invisible line, that his help might turn into dependence or obligation. He worried about what it meant to feel drawn to someone whose life looked so different from his own. Friends at work noticed he seemed distracted, and his mother gently asked if something was weighing on him. He brushed it off, unwilling to explain something he did not yet understand himself. The truth was, he felt alive in a way he had not in years, and that terrified him more than loneliness ever had. One evening, as winter pressed closer and the air sharpened with cold, he arrived at the bus stop to find it empty. Days passed without her, then weeks. The absence settled over him like a quiet grief. He realized then how deeply she had rooted herself in his life, how the possibility of never seeing her again hurt more than he expected. He searched for her near shelters, scanned familiar streets, and asked around without revealing too much. It felt foolish, chasing a connection that had never been named, but he could not ignore the pull. When he finally found her, it was at a community center hosting a job fair and warm meals. She looked different, healthier somehow, her posture lighter. Seeing her there filled him with a mix of relief and uncertainty. He learned she had secured a temporary place at a women's shelter and was working with a case manager to get back on her feet. The pride in her eyes when she spoke about it reminded him that she had never needed saving, only space and support to rebuild. Their relationship shifted then, becoming something more balanced, more intentional. He helped her practice for interviews, reviewed her resume, and drove her to appointments when he could. She challenged him too, asking why he stayed in a job that drained him, why he never talked about what he wanted. Through her questions, he began confronting parts of himself he had ignored for years. He admitted to feeling stuck, to being afraid that reaching for more would only lead to disappointment. She listened without judgment, offering. Understanding that felt both gentle and strong. As months passed, she found steady work at a small nonprofit and eventually a modest apartment of her own. Their time together changed shape, moving from bus stops and community centers to quiet dinners and long walks along the waterfront. He noticed how naturally she fit into his life, not as a complication, but as a reminder of what mattered. Loving her did not feel like falling. It felt like standing still long enough to see clearly. Near the end of this story, if it has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may need them right now. He realized, slowly and without fanfare, that he had fallen for her in the most unexpected way, not because of a dramatic moment, but because of 1,000 small choices to show up, to care, and to be honest. She did not rescue him from his life, and he did not rescue her from hers. Instead, they met each other where they were, bruised but willing, and built something real from there. The love that grew between them was not loud or perfect, but it was steady, rooted in respect and shared growth. Just before we reach the end, leave a comment below telling us what moment in this story stayed with you the most. On a clear spring morning, he stood on his apartment balcony, watching the city wake up, feeling a calm he once thought impossible. She was inside, laughing softly at something on her phone, and the sound carried to him like a promise. Life had not suddenly become easy, and the world still held its share of storms, but he understood now that love did not always come when you were ready or looking for it. Sometimes it arrived quietly, at a rain-soaked bus stop, asking only that you pay attention.